Our gospel today comes from the Gospel of Luke. And there we read, "In the 15th year of the reign of Emperor Tiberius, when Pontius Pilate was governor of Judea, and Herod was ruler of Galilee, and his brother Philip, ruler of the region of Iturea and Trachonitis, and Licinius, ruler of Abilene, during the high priesthood of Annas and Caiaphas, the word of God came to John, son of Zechariah, in the wilderness. He went into all the region around the Jordan, proclaiming a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins, as it is written in the book of the words of the prophet Isaiah, the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his paths straight. Every valley shall be filled, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough ways smooth. And all flesh shall see the salvation of God." Let us pray. Lord, may your words only be spoken and your words only heard, and we ask this all for your love's precious sake. Amen. Please be seated. Well, welcome. So good to have everybody here today. Glad you're with us. Today we're continuing our sermon series, A Force for Good, and this is episode 2, The Revenge of the Sloth. All right, and I worked really hard on this title just for Trevor, and I didn't want him to see it till today, and it'll make sense as we go on. All right, so episode 2, The Revenge of the Sloth. And what we're going to talk about a little bit today is another way that the world has changed. And we might not realize the world has changed in this way because we're so caught up in the world, we're in it, we don't always realize what's going on around it. But if we take a step outside the world in which we live and look at it, we'll see how real and how pervasive and how much impact this change has. And the change is that the world of the 21st century is even faster paced than the world of the 20th century. As hard as that may be to believe. I mean, the world, probably for most of our lives, has seemed pretty fast. But just in the last few years, the world has gotten exponentially faster. And the pace of life has increased. And I'm betting you're feeling it this morning, and I'm feeling it this morning. And if I were just to ask, and I won't, how many of us are here are just feeling tired, I'll bet you a lot of hands would go up. And why is that? Because of the pace of life. Now, like I said, if we step outside the system and look at it, we'll realize it'll make perfect sense. We'll see how it is that the world has become faster and faster and faster. Once, not so long ago in human history, which is actually a very short time in the span of this planet, what could be done in a day was limited by a human's physical ability to work. It was limited by our body's ability to do work. And it was also limited by circadian rhythms, night and day. You could only work when it was daytime. You didn't work when it was night, you went to bed. And so people worked for a period, and then they slept, and then they got up and they worked, and then they slept. And then we increased that a little bit because we could use animals. A horse could do more work than a human being, but in the end, a horse can only do so much work. And so for a long time, for the majority of human history, how much work we could do in a day, how much we could get done, our pace was determined by the limits of our bodies, the physical limits of the bodies of animals, of other physical creatures, and by our circadian rhythms. Now, we were able to get around that a little bit by using machines. Machines have a little bit more horsepower than a horse. Machines can run night and day. But a machine still needs a human being to oversee it, to maintain it, to supply it. And so machines increased the speed at which we work, but they were still by and large limited by, again, circadian rhythms and by the human ability to oversee, to supply, to maintain, to manage. But here's where the exponential leap has occurred, and this is the very recent leap. And now the limit is not machines. Now what determines pace is ones and zeros. In other words, code. In other words, what determines our pace now is how quickly information can travel across fiber optics, and that's virtually the speed of light. And that changes the whole game. And here's some of how it changes the game. For the first time in 2014, this had never happened before, a newspaper in LA scooped every other newspaper, and they got a story out before any other newspaper got the story out. It was a story of a major earthquake, and the way they got this story out so quickly was the story was written by a computer. No human being involved. It was a computer that had a program to scan data faster than any human being could, look for certain patterns, found a pattern, had a program to write, and so this bot did this whole thing all on its own, and it did it faster than a human being could ever do it. Here's another example. This one's kind of fun, and I'm gonna look at my notes on this one just to make sure that I get this one right. But in 2015, there was a guy who was traveling on United Airlines. He was a musician, and United Airlines broke his guitar. Some of you may have heard this story. And he spent 9 months trying to get a response from United Airlines in the ways that we once did, going through all the directories, trying to get somebody to respond. Nobody responded. So he had this idea, being a musician, and he wrote a song which he entitled United Breaks Guitars. And he uploaded it to YouTube. Is it upload or download? Upload. Okay, so he uploaded it to YouTube. Thank you. And within one day, he had 150,000 views. So one day, put this up, 150,000 views. And imagine this, he gets a phone call from United Airlines. But it's too little, too late. Within 3 days, the video has more than 1 million views. And United's stock falls 10%, valued at $180 million, 600,000 times the value of the initial guitar. That's the new world. That's fast. That's speed. I mean, that's what we do. Within a week, the song peaks as the #1 downloaded tune on iTunes. United makes a $3,000 donation to an organization which the original guitar owner requests, and Taylor Guitars gives the original owner 2 of its guitars for a value they, just because they wanted to, I guess. But that's the new world, and you can just imagine United sitting back and say, what? Huh? Because the world in which they're living is so different than the world in which they had lived, because the speed at which things can happen is now, it's not regulated by circadian rhythms. You know, it's morning for us, but it's night for somebody else. And so if I'm doing business with somebody on the other side of the world, I've got to be on their rhythm to contact them. So we never sleep anymore. And particularly the younger you get, I mean, you know, people are just connected across the world. Gamers, you know, those of you who are gamers, I mean, you know, you're game with somebody across the world, you're doing that at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so, see, we have an right here. And so now what regulates our speed is ones and zeros. And things that didn't look like they would ever change have changed. And so, for instance, church has changed radically. Church, which didn't change for 2 millennia. In the last 20 years, you know, from when I went to seminary, I don't even recognize it. They didn't teach me anything about it. And because what happened was business models, people took business models, and they applied them to church, and guess what? Just like business models work really well in the business world, they work really well in the church world. But it changes everything. And so now on any given Sunday, most people won't go to church, but those that do, most of them will go to great big churches that are built on business models. But here's just one way that changes. Many of those great big business-oriented churches won't do church on Christmas Day. And why won't they do church on Christmas Day? Because it's not worth it to them. And what that means is it's not worth the cost of doing business. Their services are so elaborate. They cost them so much to put on such spectacle, to bring in the people who come in for that. It costs them so much that they simply cannot afford on a day when not many people are going to come. It's just not worth it. And so on Christmas Day, I mean, just think of that for a second. Christmas Day, arguably the most important day of all days, their doors will be shut. Because from a purely business perspective, it's not worth it for them. See, that's happened like in the last 10 years. That never would have happened even 20, 30, 40 years ago, because the old model just said, you know what, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, Jesus is there. So it doesn't matter how many people come on Christmas. And on Christmas, I can just do the service myself with 2 or 3 people, and that doesn't cost anybody anything. And I'm going to do it anyhow, because that's part of my understanding of what it means to be a priest. So, you know, 20 or 30 people show up, and we'll do Christmas together. So that's the old model. It's about faithfulness. It's not about profit. It's not about scale. It's not about, but you see how radically and fundamentally this whole thing is changing. And sometimes I just stare at this and say, I'm totally unprepared. I can give you another one. What it means to be a man. I mean, the concept of masculinity was by and large locked in for millennium. All right? But it has changed radically and quickly. And so for a lot of us who are men and who are raised with a certain idea of what it means to be a man, we look at this whole world, this new world, and we just go, huh? And it's not that we want to be jerks. You know, it's not that we want to be dinosaurs. In fact, it breaks our heart more than anybody's. I mean, we want to be good husbands. We want to be good fathers. We want to be good friends. We want to be, but we just often don't know how, because it's not that we don't try. Lord knows we're trying. But we just don't always know how, because this concept has changed so quickly and so fastly, and we just don't know how to deal with the new realities. And the expectations that people bring to us, which aren't unreasonable, they're eminently reasonable, we just don't always know how to meet those. And so a lot of relationships will go south because people will think, well, my spouse is just unsatisfying. He doesn't know how to do this, doesn't know how to do this, and it's breaking his heart, because the truth is he doesn't. The truth is I don't. Now, that's not an excuse. We've got to learn. But reality just changes around us, and that's some of what happens. And then, because the world changes so fast, things are increasingly fleeting. And just another statistic, not much is permanent anymore. There's this great sense of impermanence. Again, this one is mind-boggling, and you all know this. The firms that we grew up with, that we always thought would be there, man, they just come and go. And so 50 years ago, a Fortune 500 firm was expected to last about 75 years. Today, how long do you think a Fortune 500 firm lasts? Fortune 500, top of the top of the top. 15 years. 15 years, that's the lifespan. And so these companies, for those of you in this area, remember good old Borders in the Countryside Plaza, where me and my kids would go and have a whatever drink they'd serve there, and pull out comic books and spend Friday night down there reading together. And now it's gone. Whoever thought it would be gone, but it's gone. The Fortune 500 list in 2011 featured only 67 companies that appeared in 1955, meaning that just 13.4% of the Fortune 500 firms in 1955 were still on the list. 87% couldn't keep up. So we live in an increasingly impermanent world. It's a world we don't recognize because it doesn't look like it did yesterday, and it can change in the blink of the eye. It's not determined by how much work I can do. It's not determined by circadian rhythm. It's not determined how much work a machine can do. It's determined by ones and zeros being processed over optic fibers, and that's virtually the speed of light. And so change just happens like this, and who in the world can keep up with it? And and the pace just gets maybe a little crazy. And then, our old connections used to be many to few. There were just a few things you need to attend to. But now in this world of sort of hyperspeed, it's many to many. Once it was many to few. Just a few things you had to attend to. But now there's all these things you have to attend to. And here's how you experience that. Here's how I experience that. Some of you don't even know this world, all right? But once there was this thing that was called snail mail. It wasn't delivered by snails. It just seemed like it. And it was actual things, letters, handwritten, that were delivered by the post office. And so when I first became a priest, which was almost 30 years ago, and in the course of a given week, I might get 5 letters, because it took people time to write letters, and it took people time to send the letters. It took them time to get to you. And because the whole system was slow, nobody expected you to respond instantly. So you get 5 letters in a week. So once a week you sat down, you see, this is how you crafted your business life. You set aside 1 or 2 or 3 hours to do your mail. Once a week you did your mail. It was out and you're done with. Well, so, many to few, or few to few. Now it's many to many. It's email, and in email it's 150 messages a day, and everybody is expecting a response yesterday. And who in the world can keep up with that? My inbox is a nightmare. I mean, it just is. And so this guy, Tom Peters, who many of you probably heard of, he wrote the book In Search of Excellence. He wrote Wow, a business guru for the last 25 years. He hasn't written much, but he's been out there preaching and teaching about what makes for actually not just good business, but good life. And recently he published a tome of all of his work, 25 years put together, and a PowerPoint presentation in 14 chapters. I believe you can download it for free. I have tons of good stuff in here. And here's how he summarizes today's world. He summarizes it like this. WTT, MSAMT, MSUTFW. You know what that stands for, right? You know what that stands for. I better tell you because you might fill in some of the wrong things on that. So it's whoever tries the most stuff and messes the most stuff up, I did have to change that a little bit, and messes the most stuff up the fastest wins. Whoever tries the most stuff and messes the most stuff up the fastest wins. And what he's saying is this world is so fast-paced, nobody can predict what's going to happen. And so we don't know what's going to work. We don't know where the broken guitar is going to come in. So we just got to try new things, try new things, try new things as fast as we can. And we just got to let them fail, 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 fail. We just got to let them break, break, break. But if you do enough of those, you'll find the one that works. So the one who just runs through possible things, breaking them left and right, not caring if they're going to fail, they're going to come upon the thing that's going to win, and that's going to keep them out in front of everybody. And that's the price of doing business in this world today. Faster, 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 faster. Now, that may be all good in business, but what happens when the things that we're messing up are people? What happens when the things we're breaking are the people we care about? What happens when the things that are failing are our most important relationships? And that's what faster, faster, faster does. And that's where we get to the revenge of the sloth. Is that sometimes, I'm so proud of that, is that sometimes slow is just better. There's an old parable that's told. It's one of the few things I remember from my childhood. I remember being told as a Native American parable. It was the devil coming to a white man, and the devil said to the white man, as much property, as much land as you can run around in a day, it's yours. The guy said, well, that sounds like a good deal, so he takes off running. And in the morning, he's running around 3 acres of land, and he comes to the devil and he says, you know what, I never thought I'd have 3 acres, and the fact that you've given this to me, and just because I ran around it, well, I'm just so happy, thank you. And the devil says, well, it's all yours, glad you got it. But I tell you what, you just did that in half a day. So imagine if you ran until the, to the evening, and imagine if you just ran a little bit faster. You could probably get another 5 acres. You'd have 8 acres and 3 acres, good, but 8 acres is so much better. And the guy says, you know what, you're right, that's true. And so he goes out for the afternoon, and he runs faster, and he runs 5 acres in the afternoon, and comes to dinner, he says, oh, this is fantastic. Now I have, I lousy at math, I don't know, he has 10 acres, whatever he has, and we'll just say he has 10. And he says, this is so good. Thanks for the advice at noon. I have more than I ever thought I'd have. I'm just pleased as can be. Devil, you got a bad rap. This is, and the devil says, this is so good, and I'm glad you're enjoying this. But you think about this. Think what you did, and the sun's still up. You can get a little bit more. And in fact, now there's just a few hours left. So if you run flat out, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So no, why hold back anything now? Just run flat out. You could probably double the amount that you have. The guy thinks about it, he says, oh, holy cow, that's right, I could. And 10 acres is good, but if I had 20, I think I could do it 20. 20 is better, more is better. Oh, yeah, thanks, devil, see it. And he just bolts. And as the sun's going down, by golly, he's run around, an additional 10 acres, 20 acres. He's coming around the devil to say thanks, and you can see where this is going. What happens? He drops dead. Yeah, that's faster, faster, faster. And whether we kill ourselves, or whether we kill our relationship, or whether we kill another person's belief in us, or whether we, that's what faster, faster does. Put Jesus over against that. Jesus, who's more like the sloth, who Jesus only has 3 years to make his mark, and yet he makes a mark like nobody else ever has, and he does it just by walking, by letting people interrupt him, by going slow. And so, I hope that this holiday season, that whatever the business world requires of you, that in the human world, the world of your relationships, you and I will slow down. I hope that we'll take some time and make some time for the most important people around us. I hope that husbands and wives, man, I hope that you will talk eye to eye. I hope that you'll listen to each other. I hope you'll kiss and snuggle up. We have something we call the 6-second kiss. And it's John Gottman, a relational expert, is the guy who came up with this. But it's just a way of connecting, of just in a way that you can only do when you slow down enough to connect. And it's literally just taking 6 seconds to just kiss and kiss passionately. And if that develops into a little something else, then so much the better. And it's just to just slow down and just let, and just make that fundamental connection. And it might just be eyeball to eyeball. Sorry, I know that's too much information for some of you. But, and I do apologize. But it might be just looking at somebody else. It might be a 6-second hug. It might be a 6-second handshake. But whatever it is, it's just slowing down enough to make those connections. Make time for our kids. Make time for your kids. It's a lonely time of year. Make time for friends, for people who don't have anybody else. Some of those people are probably sitting around you this morning. Make time for church. Church is what reminds you that you need to slow down, that you need to keep priorities straight, that I need to keep priorities straight. And if there's somebody not reminding you to keep priorities straight, and all you hear is faster, 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 you're going to run faster, 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 and you're going to go through Christmas, and it's going to be a nightmare. So it's important that you're here, because this is where you're going to get a heart check. This is where you're going to hear truth. This is where you're going to, this is where you're going to get to check in. And then the final thing I want to say, just the final thing I want to say, is I had an opportunity to slow down a little bit this week because I was thinking about this, and it was my actually the anniversary of my ordination. And I like to use that to, I forgot, my wife reminded me I was just moving too fast. I usually try to think about that, but when she reminded me, I did slow down and think about it. And she wrote this wonderful little thing. She said, you know, she put a little post on Facebook, which is how I was reminded that I was named it. It just said, a wonderful journey with wonderful people. And I love that because she got it right. Because you know the thing that has made this 29 years of priest wonderful is the people. You might say, well, isn't it God? Well, yeah, God's at the heart of it. But so often the way God makes himself known is through people. It's through family. The people who support us in the most important things of our lives. And so when I reflect, I just want to take a moment and just say, thanks. I am so grateful for each and one of you. I just really am. And as good as it's been, and these 15 years have been really, really good. This last year has been challenging, most challenging of all of them, but people are still doing good work. And I have the sense that we are on the cusp of something really good. Just something really special. And one thing that really excites me about that is getting to experience that with you. I think it's going to be great. So I'm so thankful for each, and thank you for the privilege of doing this work with you. I love it. Thank you. Amen. Amen.